All right, we're back. It's Monday, 12:30 a.m. KSOH, the new KSOH Radio, and I'm in studio with my guest, Phillip Paul Bryant and Eric Dick. A lot of people have been mulling over this election. I said earlier that this was an historic election. So many things that happened in this particular election cycle locally. And among the things that kind of slipped by people, a lot of people were focused on the Proposition number 1, the local Proposition number 1 in Houston, which was, of course, the Equal Rights Ordinance, the so-called HERO Ordinance. But there was another ordinance that passed. Of course, HERO was defeated. And that was legislation by the city to change term limits for elected officials at the city level. That ordinance passed. And my guest this morning had filed a lawsuit to throw out that legislation that passed on the ballot. And so with me is Phillip Paul Bryant and Eric Dick. Good morning. How are you?
I'm fantastic. It's a great day to be alive.
Very good. And tell me about this lawsuit. Phillip, you're a plaintiff in the lawsuit, right?
Correct. I'm the plaintiff.
And this legislation was passed. A lot of people don't know that we're now electing the next mayor on the runoff and some of these other local. They'll be in office for 4 years.
Well, some of them will actually be in office for 10 years. And in one particular case, a city council member will be in office for 11 years.
Wait, well, hold on. Hold the phone now. Wait a minute. Who is that?
For 11 years, that would be Mike Sullivan in District E. He slipped in at the end of, not Mike Sullivan.
Dave Martin.
Dave Martin slipped in at the end of Mike Sullivan's turn. And, Dave.
So he got 1 year for that. Then he's already served his 2 years, which he's elected for.
Okay.
And now, based on this election, he'll be able to do 2 more 4-year terms.
That seems a little bit much.
There are about 3 or 4 representatives that will have 10 years on city council.
Wait a minute now. Come on, name them out now. Come on. Let's call names and shame the devil.
We don't want to make too many enemies here.
No, I mean, it's just a law.
Michael Kubash, Judon Borkins.
Wait, hold on.
Not Judon Borkins.
That's a Freudian slip. He wishes his name was Judon.
Oh.
Dwight Borkins.
Yeah, I mean, so these guys will.
Somebody told me yesterday Dwight's thinking about running for mayor.
I don't have any information on that. Right.
But I'm just saying, people are talking.
Well, after 10 years of city council, you'll be in a position to do, pretty much anything that you want to do.
Well, I guess.
And we're not just trying to overturn the election for the sake of overturning it. We believe that voters were misled based on that ballot language. And so it was more along those lines. Yeah,
and I want you to unpack this for me, Eric. Certainly, voters, term limits is kind of a curse and a burden. If you got somebody good, you really wish they could stay in office. But boy, if you get a dud.
Well, imagine if Denise Parker had an extra 2 years.
Hey, hello. So Eric, what was wrong with the language as a lawyer in your standpoint in terms of voters being misled?
I'm glad you asked that. Now what's happened this year is twice the Texas Supreme Court has said that the city of Houston has misled voters in their ballot language. The first time was with the rain tax, where the city of Houston omitted a chief feature in the language, specifically that it was a tax or that people were going to get hit with the fee, and they didn't list that in the language. With the HERO Ordinance, Proposition 1, it read as if it was a negative instead of a positive. When you're voting yes, you're actually voting no, and the such, and it had to be reworded. Here, it doesn't talk about its effect, namely that city council members can serve up to 10 years, on how it is benefiting incumbents. And also, if you read it, it reads as if it's limiting terms, and it actually, if you look at it, it looks like that the total amount of time the limit for all terms is 4 years. So it looks like the total amount of time anyone can serve would be a maximum of 4 years. And as we've been talking about this publicly, a lot of people have come out of the woodworks and told us that they thought the language was something completely different than what it does.
Well, okay, and I don't. Let's see if we can bring the language up on the phone, because we really like to dig in and get into details and specific. Let's also open up our phone lines and invite our listeners to comment, because I'm interested to know, did the African American community realize that you were extending? Because from what I understand, looking just briefly at the numbers, the African American community did support a change in term limits. The number is 713-526-1230, 713-526-1230. The interesting thing about this, my friend Bob Stein at Rice University did some polling and analysis on this very issue. And what he found was that when people realized that by passing this ordinance to change the term limits from 2 years to 4 years, from 6 years total to 8 years, if it benefited any incumbent council member or elected official, they were big time, thumbs down, voted it down. But if they were not aware that it would have some impact on extending the terms of the officers, the elected officials, it of course passed. So this is very much a critical piece of information. How is it going to impact the incumbent elected officials that are already elected? Now, we dealt with this before when term limits were changed. We just exempted everybody that was in office at that time. So they could not benefit or be harmed. They just simply were under the rules that they were elected under. And so we know how to do that. That's not what happened with this language.
And there's another thing.
And by the way,
oh, sorry.
we step on toes over here. So we're not trying to make anybody feel good out there. We're trying to have a march, a search for the truth.
And one thing, Judon, is Bob Stein actually in an article on what Cape was it NPR. He said if you thought the drainage fee language was misleading, the language for Proposition 2 is very misleading. And Bob Stein actually referred to the language as being very misleading. Also, another big problem is whenever people were casting their votes, they didn't know whether or not they're casting their votes for, Michael Kubash for 2 or 4 years. Maybe they might have changed their mind. Maybe they wouldn't have cast their vote for him if they would have known it would have been 2 years. How could you cast a vote?
4 years.
Or if it would have been 4 years or 2, however it was, how can you cast a vote when you don't know how long they're going to serve? So having like this contingent, election.
Is it fair for them to cast a vote not knowing if the candidate they're voting for them to be in office 2 years versus 4 years?
Well, they were voting for him to be in there 2 years. It just, once that ordinance passed, it just retroed it back. And so I don't know if that's legal. We'll allow the experts.
Well,
and I do have the language if you wanted me to.
Yeah, please. Just slowly read the language that was on the ballot.
Okay. Relating to term limits for city elective office, shall the city charter of the city of Houston be amended to reduce the number of terms of elective office to no more than 2 terms in the same office and limit the length for all terms of elective office to 4 years, beginning in January 2014, and provide for transition.
Well, wait a minute. Wait. Hold on now. I'm pretty good with English. In fact, most people think I'm very good. I've got 2 master's degrees. Okay. That very much sounded like 2 terms for no more than 4 years.
That's correct.
It does. It sounds
4 years in office.
At our press conference.
But it doesn't strongly infer that means 8 years total.
Correct.
It doesn't know it. It infers that it's 4 years total.
Wow.
We actually had an attorney at our press conference that was walking by. We had a press conference at the civil courthouse. An attorney walked by and said, "Thank you guys for fighting this. I'm an attorney, and when I read it, I thought I was limiting the terms to 4 years." So if attorneys can't understand ballot
Who does
language.
this? What's going on downtown at City Hall? Who does this?
Incumbents.
Why did they do this like this?
Because
Parker say?
it's incumbents. Oh, actually, Anise Parker publicly said that voters more likely didn't know that they were voting to extend term limits. Anise Parker publicly said that on November 4th. Who pushes this? Actually, it was Jerry Davis that pushed this because he wanted to spend more time in office. Incumbents push this type of stuff to avoid having to be elected.
Well, we're not going to put all of the blame on even the incumbent elected officials who benefited, because where are your friends at the Houston Chronicle? Where was Channel 13, 2, and 11, the great bastions of public liberty, the mainstream media? Where were they?
Listen,
I wasn't here yet, so I can't be blamed.
Listen, no one wakes up in the morning and says, "Man, you know what? I need to give my elected officials more time down at City Hall." This was something This was something that was created by elected officials for their own benefit. There was no public hearings. There was no protest saying we need to give these guys more time. So in my position, anything that they're doing down at City Hall, if it's not directly benefiting the local communities, then they shouldn't be doing it.
Let's take a break on that, and we'll come back with our callers. If you'd like to join the conversation at 713-526-1230, give us a call. We'll be right back.
This is Larry Payne, inviting everyone to join us on Monday evenings at 7 p.m. for Interchange, here on the new KCOH 1230. Interchange is your weekly call-in public affairs talk show. We want to engage with you and our great guests for an impactful conversation. So join us each week for Interchange. That's Mondays at 7 p.m. here on KCOH.
Walgreens understands that sometimes you need a holiday gift and you just don't have any time to waste. That's why we make it easy to get thoughtful gifts and stocking stuffers like premium chocolates, gift cards, beauty items, and more. Plus, we're right around the corner, so you can get in, out, and on your merry way. Walgreens, at the corner of happy and healthy.
Earn up to $20 in Jingle Cash good on next week's purchase of $30 or more. See store for restrictions and limitations.
Hurry into the Home Depot Black Friday weekend for the Dremel 3000 Series Rotary Toolkit, just $49. Let's do a stocking full of ideas. With a wood carving, metal cutting, glass etching Dremel tool, we can give a gift that does pretty much everything for a price that's next to nothing. That's how to holiday. Let's do this. The Dremel 3000 Series Rotary Toolkit for just $49. More saving, more doing. That's the power of the Home Depot. Valid through December 4th, U.S. only. See store for details.
1230 KCOH is now live and streaming. Hi, this is Sabrina Lott with KCOH TV. Yes, you heard me correctly, KCOH TV. And you can now hear and see 1230 KCOH and all of our wonderful on-air talent streaming live on your phone, tablet, or computer. Simply log on to KCOHradio.com, click the KCOH TV tab, and either create a live stream account or use your Facebook logins to connect even faster. Soon, KCOH TV will have exclusive shows, concerts, behind-the-scenes footage, and even more surprises. And if you subscribe now, you will be getting all of this great new content absolutely free. Absolutely free. That is all just another example of the new KCOH. So in the meantime, stay locked into 1230 KCOH, where you never know what new and exciting development we will announce next. Stay tuned.
KCOH, radio you can hear and see. The new 1230, better than ever.
All right, we're back. 12:30 a.m. KCOH Radio. You can watch us on TV as well. You really need to get on the internet. We want all of the social media platforms to work with us because we've got some work to do this year. The election starts on Wednesday, December the 2nd. Early voting begins. There's only one Sunday for the pew to the polls, and that's on this coming Sunday. And then, of course, Election Day is December the 12th. We got a lot of work to do, and the folks got to get on their assignment. Let's go to the phone lines. I want to talk to Brother Charles X. Brother Charles, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm so glad you have your guest on today. In fact, I want to invite them to the largest civic engagement breakfast in the state of Texas this Thursday to inform our guests, because, you know, we're full of information, on Thursday at South Union Church of Christ at 288 in Holly Hall at 9 o'clock, if they would so desire to be there to inform and educate our large group.
I'm sure they'll be there. In fact, this is going to be a Judon mandate. You guys are going to show up on Thursday, right? All right, go ahead.
Okay, now here's the other thing. This is clearly, I just finished a article, clearly the historic tactic of Houston, Texas politics. It's the same thing they did with the schools. It's the same thing they did with super neighborhood. It's the same thing they did with the drainage. It's the same form of politics or theft by ordinance, as the article said. This is business as usual. And yes, I would agree that the Houston Chronicle, the Greater Houston Partnership, all of them understand this and allow this to happen. Their voice was silent. And that silent, in my mind, means that they understand and allowed it to happen. I'm just glad somebody is also raising the voice and raising the consciousness of the voting public. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Brother Charles. We're going to invite our guests to respond and also invite other callers to call in 713-526-1230. We have some lines open at 713-526-1230. What do you guys think?
I think the mayor just publicly admitted that this was deceptive. I don't know how much more that we have to go into.
I don't know how much more of this I can stand.
You have the mayor admitting that that the language was deceptive, admitting that voters didn't know what they were voting on. You have Bob Stein saying publicly that this was very misleading, and if you just look at it, you can see that it was misleading.
Read it one more time for our listeners who, went into the polling booth and didn't quite know what they were voting on, which again, that's our responsibility. When we go in, we ought to know what's on the ballot.
But on the other hand, the city should have language, that helps voters and informs voters, not tries to deceive them. And the language here, Judon, relating to term limits for city elective offices, shall the city charter of the city of Houston be amended to reduce the number of terms of elective office to no more than 2 years in the same office, and limit the length for all terms of elective office to 4 years beginning January 2016, and provide for transition.
Two terms, right?
Correct.
For 4 years.
Terms.
Yeah, you said 2 years, 2 terms.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that people understand. Our phone number is 713-526-1230, 713-526-1230. Boy, you better be glad you're on with me and not these women coming up in here. Some sisters coming up in a few minutes after me, Gladys House and Angie.
Real quick, study shows that when you extend term limits, you allow for less diversity when it comes to race and gender. When you extend term limits, you allow for less accountability when it comes to elected officials. And so this isn't something that actually helps our communities.
Well, and I don't fully agree. I thought that 3 2-year term limits was not the best system. I pretty much prefer 2 4-year limits over 3 2-year limits, but I did not intend to support 10 and 11. And it clearly was, because we did this before. We had this debate when we altered term limits before, and we said incumbent elected officials cannot benefit from this provision. Just put it in the law. So if we're going to turn that page, if we want to say, it's best not for these guys to be down there trying to raise money, they learn a little something about how government works, and we take them out. I thought it would have been great if Lanier could have done another 2 years if his health would have allowed it. But I don't like government by sneak from anybody. It all ought to be transparent.
Yeah, if you think that your ideal is better, you have to articulate that to the community. You don't trick them into voting a certain type of way that goes against something that they want.
And this makes me, let's say, disappointed. That's not a bad word to use. I could use a harsher word. Because I think that the people who are in office have a responsibility also to come tell us when this madness is on the ballot so that we know, so that we're fully informed as to what our choices are and what the possibilities are. And I don't think I heard anybody talking about this, maybe because the drumbeat of Hero drowned everything out.
I definitely think it was some of the Hero that overshadowed, because there were 7 propositions from the state, there were 4 propositions from the county. Then you had your mayor, city council, and controllers races. And then at the end, you had those last 2. And I'm thinking that last thing on the ballot was Proposition 2. People saw that
was the last thing on the ballot.
The little red capture ballot button. They were ready to push it.
Wow. They do this every year. And, because people did not really know what was in the state propositions, and the state public officials didn't really talk about that a whole lot. This happens so rarely that people actually take the public through the entire ballot and explain the positives and negatives, the facts of each individual proposition. In fact, I told some people at a forum that I went to, good people, well-intentioned people, that it's not all about the mayor. It's not just about the mayors and elected officials. These other races matter as well. By the way, the controller's going to be in there for 4 years, too.
Well, not if we can help it.
Well, I think Ron Green has to come out, no matter what. No matter what. Tell me how the lawsuit is proceeding and where it is as a matter of law. Now, when did you file this lawsuit?
We filed it last week. We're waiting for service and waiting for the City of Houston file answer. Then our next step is going to be a summary judgment. We feel strongly that we're going to win a summary judgment.
Is this in federal court, a state court? How does that work?
Okay, it's actually an election contest. It's filed in state court. It's not in federal court. And whenever you have these election contests, no judge from Harris County, Fort Bend, or Montgomery County can make the decision.
Okay.
So you have to get a visiting judge. We've got the visiting judge. We got him last week, and we're waiting for the City of Houston to file an answer and in East Parker to file an answer. Then at that time, we're going to wait the appropriate period and file a motion for summary judgment. And I believe this is going to be won by summary judgment. I'm pretty confident that's going to be won by summary judgment.
I'm not confident of anything that goes along with the courts any more than I'm confident with what goes on in government. I mean, the Supreme Court sitting in a few weeks, and they're going to be looking at affirmative action again, and people are really not sure what's going to happen at the federal level to that. How did this come together? Phillip, how did you get involved in this? I think you're fast getting the name, troublemaker.
That puts me in present company with Mr. John, if that's so. Listen, I was actually, our organization, the Houston Area Kojic PAC, we actually...
Church of God in Christ,
Church of God in
Political
Christ
Action Committee.
It's about 212 churches here in the Houston area, physically located here in the city of Houston.
You're the chairman of that, right?
I'm the chairman of that PAC. It's about 35,000 registered voters here in the city.
Okay.
We actually endorsed no on that proposition too. So while actually at the polling locations, I was actually at Palm Center talking to one of my friends who actually just voted and just doing some exit polling just to try to get an idea of, hey, who you voted for this and why. And when we got down to Proposition 2, he said, man, I voted against Hero, and I voted for Prop 1. I was just like, whoa. That's
Prop 2.
You're right, correct. I'm sorry. Yeah, I voted for Prop 2. And I was just like, that's interesting. What made you vote for Prop 2? He's just like, man, we need to hurry up and get these guys out. They're not really doing what they need to do down in office.
Right.
And I said, by voting for Prop 2, you're actually giving them more time versus less time. And he says, are you serious? I said, yeah. He's just like, man, I think I must have read that wrong. And he was actually in front of his fiance, and this guy is actually a political junkie. I mean, he's
Right.
into politics.
Right.
He studies all this stuff, and so for him to actually make that mistake on Proposition 2, I said, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people out here making the same mistake. And so doing some more additional exit polling, I saw that hundreds of people that I just talked to personally had made this mistake. And so after the election was over, I saw the numbers were so skewed that no way this many people wanted their elected officials to have 8 and 10 and 11 years down at City Hall. And so I contacted Mr. Eric. He's probably one of the best attorneys Eric Dick, he's probably one of the best attorneys that you're going to have here in this city. And he's a little modest today, but he wins multi-million-dollar lawsuits on a regular basis.
Oh, really? We might want him to join the Judon Boney resource team.
And so we actually have about 4 law firms that has joined us in this fight. And so we feel the Eric Dick firm, he's brought on Kevin Fulton law firm, Chris Cremona's group, Rogers Group, and so we have.
Eric, you don't have any brothers and sisters in there?
There are some brothers and sisters.
Kevin Fulton, he's an African American brother.
We got to learn election law too, not just criminal law.
And so we have what would be a modern day dream team here that's going to be fighting this, and so we have the necessary
multiracial,
resources,
multicultural,
multicultural.
You got the deep pockets for this?
Well, I got a little change, man, and hopefully this can be a swift trial, and so I won't have to spend all my tokens.
Well, I just appreciate you doing this, Phillip. I mean, the kind of leadership that we need in our community is one that's up on the table. I mean, I can live with 2 years, 4 years, 8 years, 6 years. What I can't live with, what I can't accept, is the slick trick. Always a slick trick in the game.
That's it.
And it's unnecessary, because I think for the most part, most people are well-intentioned and they mean well, and this kind of debated on the issues. But, again and again. Now, this might be a toe to step on, and I'm running out of time, so I'm going to invite my listeners to come back on tomorrow. Who was the city attorney when this thing was drafted up?
It was not David Feldman. It was whoever the current.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but whoever. All I know is
it came out of the same legal department, though.
It came out of the same legal department that drafted the HERO ordinance, the drainage,
and the drainage fee.
Yeah.
So both those were struck down by the state courts in terms of the ballot language that was put before voters.
That's correct.
And now this third one.
3 strikes and you're out.
So just collectively, and I want to challenge, my representatives who are on city council. I expect better, because not just the legal department should be held responsible, they really should be, and the mayor on this, but also the members of council are down there because they got to vote to put this stuff on the ballot. They need to understand what they're voting to put on as well, and make sure we know when we go to the polls and vote, regardless of whether they're for it or against it.
That's correct.
Disappointed once again. Anyway, this is election week. That tells you we got a lot of stuff that we got to talk about. The election starts on Wednesday, so you can early vote on Wednesday. And we need to handle our assignment. Phillip, I'm so glad that you were able to come in. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you for having me. It's good to talk to Houston, Texas.
Yes, sir. We're going to have you back, and we appreciate your leadership. Been willing to step out on this. Eric?
Pleasure, Judon.
You were on the ballot as well.
I was on the ballot.
Well, don't give it up, brother.
You keep on keeping on.
Listen, Eric had a serious platform that he was pushing. Right now in the city of Houston, it is illegal to feed homeless people. Yeah. There are over 4,600 churches in the city of Houston. As of today, only 4 of those churches are legally allowed to feed homeless people according to the city of Houston's certification. So out of 4,600, only 4 churches can feed people. And Eric was fighting that fight. And so hopefully, or he's probably doing it simultaneously, but after this trial is over, we're going to make sure that we continue to fight that feeding ban and to make sure that people know exactly what's going on and to hold our elected officials accountable.
Well, we're going to have to invite you back just to talk about that. We were just talking, in fact, last week that there are homeless and hungry people in Houston. So those of you who claim the mantle of Mickey Leland, we got to do something to try to feed these people. It's not that we don't have the food or the resources. We're just not making them available. Also, we passed Mickey Leland's birthday over this Thanksgiving holiday. So we're going to do a special show coming up very likely this week.
Beautiful.
Around Congressman Mickey Leland. I got to go. Brothers and sisters, keep the faith. Always believe that there is hope. And these 2 powerful women are coming up next. Angie and Gladys. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow.